What kind of person calls the police over a gym membership? The question hung in the air like a bad smell as Karen stormed into Fit's own gym, her oversized purse swinging like a wrecking ball. She was a mountain of indignation, her face twisted into a scowl that could curdle milk. The gym's front desk clerk, a young woman named Mia with a polite smile and a name tag pinned to her polo, barely had time to look up before Karen's voice boomed across the lobby. "I demand to speak to your manager right now," she bellowed, slamming her fist on the counter. Mia flinched but held her ground, her fingers tightening around a pen. "Ma'am, I can help you. Do you have a membership?" Karen's eyes narrowed, her lips curling into a sneer. "A membership? I don't need a membership to use a public gym. This is America. I have rights." The word rights echoed like a gunshot, drawing the attention of two other gym-goers, a lanky man on a treadmill and a woman lifting weights who paused to watch the unfolding drama. Mia, barely 20, tried to explain that Fit Zone was a private facility, requiring a paid membership for entry. Karen wasn't having it. Her face grew redder, her voice louder, as she launched into a tirade about discrimination, privilege, and her supposed entitlement to sweat wherever she pleased. "You're denying me my freedom," she shrieked, jabbing a finger at Mia. The air crackled with tension, the kind that makes bystanders hold their breath. Karen, undeterred, pulled out her phone and dialed 911, her voice dripping with venom as she reported a gross injustice at the gym. The absurdity of it all was palpable, but Karen's conviction was unshakable. She believed she was the victim, and she was ready to fight. Mia stood frozen, her polite smile replaced by wide-eyed disbelief. She'd dealt with difficult customers before, but this was something else. Karen's call to the police wasn't just a tantrum, it was a declaration of war. The other gym-goers exchanged glances, unsure whether to intervene or stay out of the crossfire. The man on the treadmill, a wiry guy named Ethan, slowed his pace, his earbuds dangling as he muttered, "Is she serious?" The woman with the weights, Sarah, set her dumbbells down and crossed her arms, her expression a mix of amusement and irritation. Karen, oblivious to their stares, paced the lobby, her phone pressed to her ear as she demanded an officer's immediate presence. "They're violating my rights," she repeated, her voice climbing to a fever pitch. Mia tried to reason with her, explaining that the gym's policy was clear and applied to everyone. But Karen wasn't listening. She was a storm, and Mia was just a sapling in her path. Then came the twist-a revelation that made Mia's heart sink. As Karen ranted, she let slip that she'd been banned from Fit Zone 3 months earlier for verbally harassing another member. The incident had been documented, and Karen had been warned never to return. Mia's eyes widened as she realized this wasn't just a random outburst. Karen was here to settle a score. The ban hadn't humbled her, it had fueled her. She'd come back to prove a point, and now she was escalating things to a level no one expected. Ethan, overhearing the revelation, shook his head in disbelief. "She's banned, and she still shows up?" he whispered to Sarah, who nodded grimly. The stakes were higher now. This wasn't just about a membership. It was personal. Karen's call to 911 wasn't a bluff, she wanted blood, or at least a scene that would make everyone regret crossing her. Mia, barely holding it together, radioed her manager, hoping for backup before things spiraled further. The air grew thicker as Karen's tirade continued. She stormed past the front desk, ignoring Mia's pleas, and pushed her way into the gym's main floor. The other members scattered, sensing trouble. Karen's eyes locked onto a treadmill, the same one she'd used before her ban. With a triumphant smirk, she climbed onto it, ignoring the members' only sign posted nearby. "If you won't let me in, I'll make myself at home," she declared, cranking the speed to maximum. The machine groaned under her weight, the belt squealing as it struggled to keep up. Mia rushed over, begging her to stop, but Karen was relentless. She pounded her feet against the treadmill, her face a mask of defiance. Then, with a sickening crunch, the machine gave out. The belt snapped, the console sparked, and Karen stumbled, catching herself on the handrails. The gym fell silent, save for the faint hum of other machines. Ethan and Sarah stared, jaws dropped, as Karen spun around, pointing at Mia. "This is your fault," she screamed. "You made me break it." Mia's face paled. She knew this was bad, really bad. The treadmill was worth thousands, and Karen's tantrum had just turned a verbal spat into a costly disaster. The police arrived within minutes, their sirens cutting through the tension like a knife. 2 officers, a seasoned veteran named Officer Daniels and a younger recruit named Officer Lopez, stepped into the gym, their expressions a mix of curiosity and exasperation. Karen, still standing by the broken treadmill, wasted no time. She launched into her version of events, painting herself as the victim of a cruel conspiracy. "They're discriminating against me," she cried, gesturing wildly at Mia, who stood trembling behind the desk. "They refused me entry, humiliated me, and now they've sabotaged this machine to frame me." Officer Daniels raised an eyebrow, his years of experience telling him this was no ordinary call. He glanced at the wrecked treadmill, its cracked console and torn belt a testament to Karen's rage, and then at Mia, who looked like she might collapse under the weight of the accusations. Officer Lopez, taking notes, asked Karen to calm down and explain from the beginning. But Karen was a runaway train, her voice rising with every word as she doubled down on her story. Mia, summoning her courage, stepped forward. Her voice shook, but she spoke clearly. "She's not telling the truth," she said, her eyes meeting Officer Daniels. "She was banned from this gym 3 months ago for harassing another member. We have it on record. She came back today, refused to leave, and broke the treadmill when we wouldn't let her use it." Karen's face twisted in fury, but Mia held her ground, her hands clasped tightly to keep them from trembling. Ethan and Sarah, still lingering nearby, nodded in silent support. Officer Daniels turned to Karen, his expression hardening. "Is that true, ma'am? Were you banned from this facility?" Karen sputtered, her confidence faltering for the first time. "That's irrelevant," she snapped. "They can't treat me like this." But the officers weren't buying it. They asked Mia for the gym's records, and she quickly retrieved a file detailing Karen's previous incident, a heated altercation where she'd berated a fellow gymgoer for hogging a machine, complete with witness statements and a signed ban notice. The truth was laid bare, and Karen's narrative began to crumble. But Karen wasn't done. In a desperate bid to regain control, she doubled down, accusing Mia of forging the records. "She's lying," she shrieked, pointing at Mia. "She's jealous of me. She's trying to ruin my life." The accusation was so absurd it drew a gasp from Sarah, who muttered, "Unbelievable." Officer Lopez, trying to keep the situation from escalating further, asked Karen to step outside for a private conversation. But Karen refused, planting herself in the middle of the gym like a defiant statue. The confrontation was now a spectacle, with every gym member watching from a safe distance. The officers exchanged a glance, their patience wearing thin. Daniels, the veteran, took charge. "Ma'am, you need to come with us now, or we'll have to escort you out," he said, his voice calm but firm. Karen's eyes widened, her bravado cracking as she realized the situation was slipping out of her control. Then came another twist, one that hit like a punch to the gut. As Officer Lopez reviewed the gym security footage on a nearby monitor, he noticed something Karen hadn't mentioned. Before breaking the treadmill, she'd deliberately yanked the emergency stop cord and slammed her fist on the console. Actions that suggested intent, not accident. The footage was damning, showing Karen's tantrum in vivid detail. Lopez showed the video to Daniels, who shook his head in disbelief. "This changes things," he muttered. They confronted Karen with the evidence, and her face drained of color. For the first time, she was speechless, her usual bluster replaced by a stunned silence. Mia, watching from behind the desk, felt a surge of relief mixed with dread. The truth was out, but the damage was done not just to the treadmill, but to her sense of safety at work. Karen's actions had turned a routine shift into a nightmare, and the consequences were only beginning to unfold. The gym was a battlefield, and Karen's empire of entitlement was collapsing. Officer Daniels, now armed with the security footage, read Karen her rights. "You're being charged with vandalism and trespassing," he said, his voice steady as he motioned for her to turn around. Karen's jaw dropped, her eyes darting between the officers and the onlookers. "You can't arrest me," she screamed, her voice cracking with desperation. "I'm the victim here." But the officers weren't swayed. Lopez gently but firmly guided her toward the exit, her hands cuffed behind her back. The gym-goers watched in stunned silence, the weight of the moment sinking in. Mia, still behind the desk, felt her knees weaken. She'd held her ground, but the ordeal had left her shaken. Ethan and Sarah approached her, offering quiet words of support. "You did the right thing," Sarah said, her voice soft but firm. Mia nodded, tears welling in her eyes. She hadn't asked for this fight, but she'd survived it. As Karen was led out, reality hit her like a freight train. Her tantrum, born of a need to dominate and control, had backfired spectacularly. The broken treadmill wasn't just a machine, it was evidence, and the gym's insurance company was already preparing to sue for damages. Worse, her arrest was now a public record, a permanent mark on her reputation. She'd called 911 to assert her power, but all she'd done was expose her pettiness to the world. The officers drove her to the station, where she'd face a judge the next day. The charges weren't severe, but they carried weight: community service, fines, and a restraining order barring her from fit zone. For someone like Karen, who thrived on being seen as right, the humiliation was worse than any penalty. Back at the gym, Mia sat in the break room, her hands wrapped around a cup of coffee. Her manager, a kind woman named Linda, joined her, praising her for staying calm under pressure. "You handled that better than most would," Linda said, placing a hand on Mia's shoulder. The gym was quiet now, the chaos replaced by a tentative peace. Ethan and Sarah, still lingering, offered to testify if the case went to court. Their support, small as it seemed, meant everything to Mia. It reminded her that not everyone was like Karen, that there were people who valued fairness, kindness, and truth. As she sipped her coffee, she felt a spark of resilience ignite within her. She'd faced a storm and come out stronger. Karen's downfall was a lesson, not just for her but for everyone who witnessed it. Entitlement, unchecked, could destroy more than a treadmill. It could unravel a life. Mia, Ethan, and Sarah returned to their routines, but they carried the story with them, a reminder of the power of standing up to injustice, no matter how loud or intimidating it seemed. For Mia, the experience was a turning point. She'd always been shy, unsure of her own strength, but now she knew she could face down a bully and win. The gym, once just a job, became a place where she found her voice. And as the sun set outside, casting a warm glow over the machines, Mia smiled. She wasn't just a clerk, she was a fighter, and she'd proven it. The world didn't belong to the Karens. It belonged to those who dared to stand tall, speak truth, and keep going, no matter the odds.